What is up guys, Wraec is here with a new video, and today I want to bring you guys a little bit of a guide on the Smokey team. This team is basically the most efficient way you can clear AFK stages and get the most AFK progress that you can get in the game. It will carry you the furthest, and it will also, well, in my opinion at least, destroy all the fun you have with this game on the way to it. Unless your fun comes from being, well, at the top of all leaderboards, but in that case, this is really the way to do it. It is a bit tedious. But it can achieve great things. If we check out the events page here and check out the leaderboards, we can see season AFK stage 1570 there for endgame. Nearly 270 stages further than I am. You can see you can really build quite some distance there. 100 stages ahead there of place 3. Absolutely insane. And this is mainly made possible by Smokey. And the reason Smokey can do that is due to his Mythic Plus ability. We really need him at Mythic Plus for this. His Mythic Plus ability is that he gains a 3rd upgrade stage for his ultimate skill. His ultimate skill is a channeled ability that is the Smokey creates, and every time he uses his ultimate, he gains a layer to it, and he upgrades this skill. And with the Mythic Plus ability, he gains a 3rd upgrade stage, so the 3rd ultimate will trigger this skill, and this will spread blue aroma throughout the arena, and this deals true damage. 12% of the max HP upgraded to +5, so now it's 14% of the max HP. And it says the max amount lost of HP is no more than 200% of Smokey and Murky's attack. That doesn't seem to be true. Basically, an enemy that stays within this aroma for the full or nearly the full duration of this ability is more or less guaranteed to be dead. You can go to +10 for some extra stun, can be quite nice. I didn't do that, and the team works quite well for me. So it's pretty free-to-play friendly, we can say, really. It doesn't really require you to have too much stuff. The only thing that really is not free-to-play friendly is the best tank for it is Fresto. Makes it a bit difficult. You can go for Legendary Plus Fresto. I have him at Mythic Plus. For me, that works well. You don't need his Mythic Plus ability, though. It's just for the extra stats that it is quite nice. And the way this team overall works is you want to stall the enemy. You want to stall long enough so that Smokey activates his Mythic Plus ability, and then you want to get those enemies into the smoke. This is not always that easy. We can watch an example. So oftentimes when you now enter a stage, you will see something like this. This is the suggested team for the current stage we are facing, and this suggested team, of course, looks quite insane. 5 stars there. We have Paragon heroes. Looks quite insane if we check it out, but it's level 501. I'm level 600, so you can see it's 100 resonance level below me. It's quite insane that this actually manages to clear. And when we copy that, we can actually see, yeah, there is our Fresto giving the abilities to the iron that we have here. We have Smokey relatively far towards the front, which you always want to do. You want to position the Smokey as far to the front as you can. The problem is already one enemy is targeting him. If we would move him one slot further to the front, even more enemies would target him, and eventually he would die. And the Frestos couldn't compensate for that. We have Roan in this version of the team, and I say version of this team because it changes. It's not always the same that you use this team. Sometimes there's Coco in there if you need some extra sustain. Sometimes you want to have the extra speed of Roan. Sometimes you use Heaven, quite often you use Heaven, and Cascade Spell can really help. Cascade Spell is pretty often used for this team. The thing that it does, basically, it gives the backmost hero energy, which in this case is Heaven, and makes her cast her ult very fast, which then in turn gives all of your heroes damage reduction. We can watch a fight. Those fights often require you to cast the ult of Iron manually. You want to have a bit of the timing there, you want to have a bit of the targeting there, you want to make sure that you pull those enemies slowly towards your Smokey. So in this case we position the first ult here, pull the enemies a bit closer, and honestly this position is probably alright. In this situation I would save the next ult up for Smokey to actually do his aroma. We can see it's now On this last stack, we activate this blue aroma. You can see those enemies starting to lose massive amounts of HP. We don't really need the ult right now. I don't want to risk pulling an enemy over. And in this situation, some small enemies have survived. I just activate the ult again. And we can see that those were just some summons. And we got a pretty easy clear there. This stage even was quite easy. But this is the way this looks. And you can see the main damage comes from Smokey. Definitely more than 200% of his attack. This is one way this works. Let's look at different variations of this team. Let's look at different heroes that can work here. So first of all, the first thing that we need is of course Smokey. And then we add on top of that. One thing that we need is a tank. The main tank you want to have is Fresto. If you can get Fresto, even Legendary Plus is fine. That will be very, very good. The reason Fresto is the best tank for this team is he has pretty decent stats. It's not like super insane, but if we get, I have some Mythic Plus, some Mythic charms on him. We got some insane Fist Def and Magic Def actually for Mythic Plus, and the main thing is he summons his illusion, which essentially doubles his stats. So you get 2 full bodies, you get 2 times his stats, you get 2 heroes that are targeted by the enemies. They both get hit, but they both also get healed, so he profits double from heals, he profits doubles more, from buffs, and on top of that he has some nice buffs in his skills as well. So not only do we have an insane heal, but we also have the damage reduction effect if we position Fresto and his illusion correctly. If you have questions on that, I made a review on Fresto and explained it quite in detail in there. You can find that on my channel. It is quite obvious once you have seen it for one time. We don't need many of its other abilities. There is of course the energy recovery speed, which you can make use of. The damage reduction effect is not often used, but against some enemies that hit our supporters it can help. So Fresto is the best tank. We have other options though. In terms of tanks, really, you can go Thorin, even though it's not that great. Haven't tried almost yet. Granny works, but all of those struggle a bit more than Fresto, because Fresto, as I said, profits double from buffs, his illusion and himself. So really, if you can go for Fresto, 3 copies are on top of the first one. I think 4 total copies that you will need. So it is an investment that is quite worth it, and that you can go for even after you have your Rainier. If you have Rainier Mythic Plus, it is fine to build Fresto to Legendary, in my opinion, before you go Skalita. I think that is very, very fine. So, next thing that we really need for this team are supporters, are heroes that help us survive. And for this, we have basically 3 common options. The more common options in this are Heaven, are Coco, and are Roan. Roan is partly used for survival, is mostly used because his ultimate, of course, gives us energy, recovers energy for his surroundings, and in this season he also has a very nice skill that makes him get his first ultimate very, very fast, makes him regenerate energy. So in this season he's very, very good for this. We don't need much of him, we don't need a super insane Roan, but it does help that if you have this seasonal skill highly upgraded, which you get through Resonance. The rest is like on top of that. We really use him mostly for his ult. Heaven is very, very often used, and I personally like her. I have a build on her with skill damage, skill power. That is quite nice because this makes her ult quite insane, because we get this Brain Prayer, which then activates Revitalize, and you can see how many blue numbers are in there. Helps her a ton, remove debuffs, make enemies or heroes tanky. So it is quite insane. We have here our Mythic Plus ability here, and this is one that we actually really, really want, because this is not only makes her immune to CC once she activates her ult, but also gives all of our heroes 30% damage reduction. We want this at least at +5 for the 300 initial energy, which make us get our first ult rather fast, and we get the 32%. I recently upgraded her to +10 because we have the Rain Prayer here, which gives us all of the buffs from Revitalize. And Revitalize profits massively this season from skill power. So in this season, her Mythic Plus is very, very good actually. So you definitely want to go for that. It is nice to get her Supreme Plus. It's not necessary, but you definitely want a Mythic Plus. For Coco, she is less often used than Roan and Hewen. She's mostly used if you have some heroes that do a ton of damage with their ult. Then sometimes you go for the double layers of survival and don't go for the fast Roan. I usually use her at Supreme Plus at least, or well, I have to use her at Supreme Plus, but I think her Mythic Plus is very much so worth it because that gives you the shield, and the shield is very big value, so I also recommend Mythic Plus on her. Those are mainly the supporters. You will often see some example clears for the stages. Most of them feature Hewen and Roan. And then we need a hero to basically move the enemy towards our heroes, towards Smokey. And for that we don't really have too many options. We have two main options. The hero that is most often used is Iron. Iron does this with his ult. He also has the Mythic Plus ability, grouping enemies a bit up, and it helps a little bit to not have the enemies super close, to not have the enemies start running right at the beginning of the fight, and to not have them super close to our Smokey, because sometimes they deal damage to surrounding enemies and then would initially deal damage to Smokey. And on the later stages that can kill him, so you really want to focus that damage on Iron, who has dodge while he has a shield, and on Fresto, who just has an insane amount of damage reduction. So having him in Mythic Plus is also very, very helpful. The same thing we have to say is he also sometimes deals damage that we really need. Like if you have Fresto and him together, sometimes they can finish off an enemy that just survived the Smokey and has maybe 10% of health remaining, and sometimes he and Fresto manage that together. So having him at a high upgrade stage, maybe Supreme Plus, can be very, very helpful. Is probably good because we also have him in the front and he is tanking a ton of damage. So that being said, you have to get used to the way he groups up enemies and have to get used to the way you manage to move enemies with him towards your Smokey. And at the same time pace it a little bit so you don't move them to him too fast. If you move them to your Smokey too fast, you might have them attack Smokey, which will then kill this guy, and well, then your attempt is basically failed. The other way to do this is Cassidy. Cassidy has this directional wave. This is the 3-tile wide wave. It does work. Sometimes it is a little bit tricky to use, because if the enemies are of course further apart than a 3-tile range, well, then you will have a hard time moving them towards your hero. And also the way you really do this, we can try this in one stage. Let's do that. So I've positioned Cassidy now in this team, and you have to make sure to not have her in the last row. There has to be some room behind her. We will see why that is the case as soon as we have her ult. The wave basically moves into the direction we click. So if I now click there, the wave will move from the back towards the front. We don't really want that. We want the enemies to move towards us. So we click behind her, and you can see there are those little arrows indicating the direction the wave will go. And now we're actually out of range of this Iron. So this is the little bit of the disadvantage, but we can move enemies quite consistently towards our heroes. Just sometimes the position is not that good. Actually, in this situation, it is actually quite bad even. So I personally use Smokey, use Iron a lot more than I use Cassidy. Sometimes it can be good, but oftentimes you find yourself in a situation where one hero is just so far away that you don't really get to move him there. Yeah, now we actually moved him to the wrong direction. A bit of a failure by me. But we still might manage to actually clear them just by the base damage we do. And yeah, we'll skip that. So yeah, worked out. I personally really find Cassidy a bit more difficult to use and a bit more situational, because we have just more flexibility with Iron. A bit more range on our ult makes it all a bit easier. Keep in mind, I'm currently not pushed as far into campaign as I probably could be. You just saw endgame at 1570. He told me he can push further. So with that in mind, those stages could probably still be cleared by a CC team. And in general, if I can do that, if I can use some kind of CC team, let's say an Ulmus team, for example, which I learned to like recently, something like this, then I do that, because this is faster. In this team I don't have to do things manually. In this team I can just go ahead, activate auto clear, and if auto clear can clear something with this team, this is very desirable because it will save you a lot of time. Doesn't always work. For some stages it doesn't work at all, but here we can also make use of the Heaven combination, and you can see the enemy HP goes down. Probably, unless the Seth really destroys us, we can get the clear here. So something like this is still an option to till a certain point. It is always until you hit a certain stage where this team just can't do enough damage anymore, and maybe your Iron or your almost dies. At that point you will have to use Smokey, but if you are somewhat, if you don't push that hard, then you might still be able to use the CC team. And only if you want to go to the absolute limits of what is possible, then you should use the Smokey team. If you have any question about the Smokey team, please let me know in the comments. I'll read them and answer, of course. Other than that, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. And with that, I wish you a great day. We'll see us in the next one.